combat experience. So combat experience. Chinese Kung Fu is not some kind of dance. Its soul is in practical combat. So, if you lose that soul, the practical combat, then you've just become dance. You become yoga. So, and that's what you see now in a lot of Chinese Kung Fu. So there's a kind of a breakage. And the way it's been passed down, it's become more and more like a dance. So the practical combat and the Taolu, the forms, have completely become separate. But really, you can't separate them. Real, traditional, especially things like, for example, what I'm teaching, Bagua, or some of the other more grappling types of Chinese Kung Fu, all the forms we do, none of the moves are filler. The Chinese Kung Fu, it's from the people. It's from society. And there's no rules. Nobody can destroy it. So he's demonstrating a form and he's applying it. Check out how he's saying, look at the elbow, you can't flare it out. And he's teaching a way to do a lock. So now he's demonstrating how you do it in the air. And he's saying, look, if you do it in the air, and it's really hard to understand how it's applied. So the host is saying, yeah, see, if you have an opponent there, you see how it's applied. So our master's demonstrating, look, if I'm just doing it in the air, you can't really understand how it's applied. So what he just said was, look, that's an example of taking the form and the actual combat and putting it together. They're not separable. I think the next segment is really, really enlightening, and it's something I really want to show you guys and translate, because there's a lot of talk, especially from traditional martial arts, that, oh, my technique is too deadly to use in UFC, or my technique is too deadly to be used in sport. So our professor here gives his interpretation, his thoughts on the deadliness of techniques versus, let's say, the sport techniques. So self-defense, maybe killing techniques versus sport techniques. So let's listen to what he has to say. So the Taekwondo master is trying to do all these kicks and I'm dodging them. And he kicks very high. I block his kick and then I just kick him in the balls. And he just gives me this look. Again, I just kick him in the balls. And he's standing there looking at me. I'm like, what? I'm like, does Taekwondo allow you to do that? That's a foul, right? But in a real fight, I'm going to freaking hit you there and you're going to be done. And then so the coach got a Muay Thai guy to fight me. And so, you know, the guy threw things and then I'm blocking. And then he threw a 1-2 combo where he punched and then he did a flying knee. So I just block it and then I go and I pull his ponytail. And, you know, as I'm dodging it, I pull his ponytail and I just pull him down and then I put my knee up to his neck on his throat. And he gets up, he doesn't know what's going on. He's like, no, he's trying to tell me, no, you can't grab my ponytail. And he's like, oh, you know, these Muay Thai guys, they'll have their ponytail. So I'm like, okay, you give me something to grab. I grab, I pull you down, and I put my knee on your neck. He's like, no, you can't do that. And I'm like, look, I'm here to communicate with you guys. We're here to test each other's skill. This is not sport. We're here to exchange knowledge. This is fight or flight. I think what I really like about what he says is a lot of times my technique is too deadly to be used in a match is used to justify not pressure testing or not actually putting whatever technique you have into the ringer. But this guy obviously went to a school and tested. I believe he went to Europe somewhere to test and teach and exchange knowledge. So he's actually pressure testing his techniques, and that's what I really like about this. And I think that's why this is different from all the other excuses that a lot of traditional martial artists use about my technique being too deadly. It's not a justification to not test them, it's a justification to be like, look, I tested them and I showed you why sport is very different from non-sport. And you know, I take jiu-jitsu right now, and my professor, a lot of times he teaches us, okay, in sport jiu-jitsu this is okay, but in self-defense you got to do this, because in self-defense he could punch you, he could stomp you, so you have to put your hands like this in self-defense versus sport jiu-jitsu. And that's why I love my professor so much, because again, BJJ is awesome, but it's not the be-all end-all. You don't want to be on the ground necessarily by choice on the street. So my professor knows that certain things you have to modify / not do when you're fighting for your life. And I'm going to show you guys an example of a force multiplier using asymmetric force in a situation. Sometimes you just have to go beyond when it's not just a match in the ring. So what we're going to see here is it's a U.S. Special Forces guy in Peru, and the Peruvian guy's talking smack. So it's U.S. Special Forces versus Peruvian Special Forces. It's like, okay, let's just fight. Whoever gets the other guy down, unable to continue, wins. So it's not any rules. It's like whatever goes. So this is as close as you can get to a street fight, or a fight for self-defense or survival. So let us see what happens here. As you can tell, he used the bare minimum. He used a move that even in the TFC, the Team Fighting Championship, is banned, which is he approached and touched and gouged the eyes. And look how effective it is. I don't know how many of you hit in the eye. I've been poked in the eye a few times. It fucks you up, man. Especially if you're not expecting it. The Peruvian Special Forces guy was expecting like a blows type of thing, like punching, kicking. So he was definitely not expecting a finger to get dug into his eye. Look how effective that is. So this is a good example illustrating what our Bagua master is saying. Sometimes there are certain techniques you use on the street that you don't use on the sport arena. That being said, though, I think what our Bagua master would agree with is you still have to have good fundamentals. You have to know how to punch, you have to know how to fight, and then you apply the asymmetric force multipliers on top of that. But you don't rely on any of that if you don't know how to fight. You have to know how to fight, establish a good foundation, really understand combat and sparring, all that, and then you use the quickest moves in self-defense scenarios. That's just my opinion. And I'm going to translate one last part of this Bagua master's talk. Just his, I consider this maybe summary of where Chinese Kung Fu is at right now. If you take away the reality, it's a building without anything. And let's talk about traditional Kung Fu. All these old masters, they probably haven't fought once in their lives. They just know some forms, some katas, and how to perform. It's all their imagination. It's all their what-ifs. But there's no foundation of combat, so it's all an empty building. On top, but Sanda or other combat kung fu, man, that's like they're practicing every day. They're fighting every day. So, or even just a person on the street who fights a lot, your traditional martial artist is not going to beat them. A lot of people say I'm biased against Kung Fu or want to make Kung Fu look bad or something like that. Absolutely not. I did Kung Fu for many years, and I was frustrated. I was frustrated because I just knew most of the shit I was doing was not applicable. I even won medals, but I knew all that shit I was doing with the sword and with the staff and everything, it was not applicable to life. So all I want to do with this channel when I'm exploring Kung Fu is let's just get to the reality of things. Let's let more of these people, Bagua masters like this guy, talk, and let's bring Kung Fu to the 21st century. I mean, there's so much beauty. There's so many techniques that I know can be applied well to life, to sport, to whatever. And they're just being hidden in all these dance moves and all these little enclaves of Kung Fu that have survived communist persecution. So, again, I have nothing biased against traditional martial arts. I love watching traditional martial arts go. It just looks prettier than mixed martial artists or boxers or etc. But with that being said, like what our Bagua master is saying, you can't separate the prettiness with the functionality, the practicalness. So you have to bring the pretty kung fu that actually works to the front and center, and not the stuff that has the filler and the bullshito. So that's my opinion. Again, keep sending me clips, guys, because I love some of the case studies, some of the examples you guys are showing me, especially the defenders of traditional martial arts, of Kung Fu, Tai Chi, etc. You guys are sending me all these clips of people applying Wing Chun, applying Tai Chi in boxing matches, etc. And we're going to do more tests. We have a lot of equipment sent to us that we're going to use. We'll test some techniques out, etc. So Rob will be back next week, people. And we will be back, and we will be exploring and critiquing and commentating on more martial arts related stuff. So thank you guys so much for watching. This was Jerry from Fight Commentary Breakdowns. Talk to you guys soon.